One of the difficulties, especially when you're younger, is you've got your friends, you got your family, and especially if they're all poor, then they have terrible views around money. They might not approve of all the stuff you're learning on the internet and trying to try these new things out. And the real is like, you're gonna fail a lot. And they're gonna say, see, told you so. And the tough part is they're gonna be right most of the time. Except it's one of those things where it's 99% right, but 100% wrong. Is that anybody who bets against you for this thing being the thing is usually gonna be right. It's just like a parent who says, you're gonna break up with this person, you're gonna break up with this person, you're gonna break up with this person. But they're right with every single person you ever date, except for the person you marry. And then they're 100% wrong. And if you have the perspective of listening to that, it can be incredibly disheartening. And so number one is, I want you to go on a different information diet. So you need to be able to ignore all the stuff that they're giving you, because like the best way to stay poor is to listen to poor people about how to get rich. You're already taking great steps by like watching content, doing this stuff. Just keep doing more of that. And I'm sure your girl, whoever you have your baby with, that's your world. Like anybody who's not trying to build Avante 2.0 with you doesn't deserve your time. Because like right now, you have a wallet of money and you got a wallet of minutes. And like every single person you're choosing to pay minutes to or pay dollars to has to earn their keep. And earning their keep in this season of your life is them helping you get to where you want to go. Cut out the people who are taking your time. Easy way to see this is like, if the people in your life don't have bigger dreams for you than you do, ignore all of their advice. Let's just ignore them entirely. And I know that that's simple to say and hard to do, but you're in a hard situation. And I think the question is whether you can be harder than your circumstances right now. And you have to be to get out of this.
I think that you would be better served actually doing you. And that comes with all the weirdness that you are. Because I've met some of you. Y'all are weird as fuck. And if you stop pretending to be this identity that you wrap into the starter kit of whatever Instagram influencer you're trying to copy, and you just were you, what happens is your unique individual personalities are like weirdness, because everybody had different parents. Everybody was born in different cities. Everyone has unique things. Like your dad might have been a mechanic. You might know a bunch of shit about cars. And if you bring that up, all of a sudden people look at what they expect from the real estate starter kit. And then all of a sudden, if you've got these points over here and you become interesting and people lean in, they pay attention because you don't match the mold. And so people are like, man, your stuff's always so different and so original or whatever. And it's really easy to be original if you're just not looking at everyone else's shit. The act of consuming everyone else's stuff, what ends up happening is that those thoughts become top of mind for you and you become another Mickey Mouse, another Instagram influencer starter kit. They've got the watch, the car, 100% hustle, 0% grind. If other people copy you, it's a good sign, because it means that what you're doing is working and most people aren't original. If you copy them, what it means is that you accept the position of second place. You accept that they are inherently first. You literally say, you are better than me at this. And if you claim to be the best at whatever it is that you're trying to do, or at least that you're trying to be the best, you copying their identity, their look, their feel, their brand means that you are accepting to lose. You will never win because you aren't going to beat them at being. Doesn't matter what business you have. If you want to make lots of money, sell more expensive stuff. There's no strategic benefit to being the second cheapest person in the marketplace, but there is for being the most expensive. There's only one strategic benefit to being the lowest cost person in the marketplace, which means that you went in with that strategy and you built an entire business around operational efficiency, automation, and you built the whole strategy of the business on being able to provide the same thing for less. If you did not do that and are simply trying to do the same business as other people and compete on price, you will lose. You will have no profit left over and you will get priced to the point of break even and you will just run a nonprofit. Thank you. If I were giving you a Ferrari, brand new, and I said, it's 10 grand, and I'm walking up to people on the street, and they believed that I was actually gonna give them the Ferrari, how hard do you think it would be for them to come up with the 10 grand? What would they do? They would call their friends, they'd call their family, they would take out of their credit cards, they'd take a loan. Why? Because they know it's worth more than 10 grand. Whenever you are selling something expensive, the reason someone is not buying it is simply because they do not understand the value. Because if they understand the value and they believe that you're giving them a Ferrari, they will find a way to get the money. I want to banish this whole concept of like, they can't afford it. Everyone can afford it if they believe the value is there. Now, quick story, his client in our software company, Alan, who was a real estate agency. So we worked with agency owners in that business. And so this guy was continually struggling. Like he couldn't really ever break through there. And he was always selling new people and they would always churn out the back, whatever. It took me 6 months of like just battering him over the head with this, publicly embarrassing him to finally get him to change his behavior. And I was like, you're not that good. Like it's not some marketing hack. It's not some sales hack. I was like, you're just not that good. I was like, you sell to realtors. He was like, yeah. I was like, have you ever been a realtor? He was like, no. Then you have no idea what they go through. And what your marketing looks like and what your sales process looks like is the same as every other fucking person trying to sell realtors. Promise you, put your terrible agency, go take the 12 weeks, pass the test, and actually be a realtor. Sell some fucking houses using your marketing skills that you claim to sell. In the first month of him doing this, he was like, oh shit, he's like, these leads aren't as good as I thought they were. I was like, no shit. That's why no one wanted to keep paying you. But you know what he did over the next 12 months? He got better and better and better at it. And here's the crazy thing. 12 months later, he actually is still a realtor and he's making more money because he actually got good at it. But here's the thing. If he had kept trying to look like everybody else, he would have been Mickey Mousing until he kept trying some new thing or some new hack, but he just didn't confront the work. And you know what happens now? Is that if he actually did want to go back to the agency thing and actually did want to help realtors, he would have the context to do it. And it would make him unique because so many other people are just like him pretending to model their Instagram page after the same thing that the other influencer they're looking up to does, rather than being like, I wanted to figure out real estate. Most people don't do that. They just look what everyone else is doing, do the same thing, water it down, and they literally blend in like everyone else. And they wonder why they don't win. You've heard me say replicate before you iterate, right? That comes to skills. If you want to learn how to sell, hide next to the guy who's making calls. You want to learn how to knock on doors? Walk with the guy who's the best guy on the team who knocks doors, right? You duplicate the skill so you know you can do it. That's different than replicating a story and replicating an identity. I've seen like Hormozify and Hormozi style content and Hormozi style edits. It's not about the captions. It's about the content. What they can copy is the way it looks and feels and sounds. So what they can't copy is the story behind it. Fix the story and the brand will take care of itself if you tell the story that's true. And so if you don't have the story to tell, then do the shit that's worth doing that no one else is willing to do. And then you'll have the story that will make you a one of one. So many people are believing a lie. They have to be happy, they have to have purpose, passion for what they're doing in order to get out of their situation. They think that they are poor because they don't have passion. That is false. You are poor because you're not doing the activities that make you rich. And you can fuel those activities whatever way you damn well please. And so if you are somebody who is more motivated by the dark side, then lean into the dark side. Unlike the saying, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, the equal opposite of that is the road to heaven is paved with bad intentions. You can do good shit with bad motivation. And when I say bad, I mean negative experiences, pain, anger, etc. I still have tons of motivation from that side. You can use that negative fuel, hit it on speed dial every time you're confronted with that thing that you don't want to do. You push through it, and what happens, you do that enough times, you start to get good at the thing. You start seeing the result of work that has compounded and start to see a purpose or start to see a bigger vision. The big vision for Alex's life until maybe 4 years ago was don't be broke. What was your mission with Gym One? My mission was to stop being poor. There are elements of shit that I do that I absolutely love, but there is tons of shit that I do every day that I fucking hate. I just don't hate it more than I hate the alternative. And the richest people in the world, they all say it's not about the money. Because if it's about the money, you stop the moment you have enough. The people who are the wealthiest in the world have the three things in common. They have the big goal, they have massive fears about never being enough, and then they have impulse control to stay on goal. These are 17 conversations that made me millions in my 20s. Number one, I was going back and forth between quitting my job and starting a gym or starting my entrepreneurial journey. Another early mentor, he sat me down and said, man, I've been listening to you waffle for months now. He said, at some point, you're not gonna know anymore. You just have to jump. He said it in a way that made me feel like a pansy. I realized I didn't need more information. I'd already done all of the research. I just needed to decide. The definition of decision comes from the Latin decadere, which basically means to cut off or kill off. The question was, which future was I deciding to kill off? Was it the future that I was in currently that I didn't like anymore? Or was it the future that I had the potential to accomplish the dreams that I had? Number two, very beginning of my entrepreneurial journey, I didn't know how to sell anything. And a mentor just said, do you want to know the secret to sales? I leaned in. I was like, yes, please. I had my notepad out. And he said, the secret to sales is making an offer so good, people feel stupid saying no. And that obviously became the subtitle of my $100 million offers book. I kept thinking that I had to learn how to try and manipulate and going through sales scripts and building rapport. And sure, some of those skills are useful to have when it's so much easier to just find things that people really want. Chick-fil-A doesn't need to sell you on chicken sandwiches. They just have amazing chicken sandwiches and people go buy them. So I think one of the hardest things as an entrepreneur or just as an individual is shifting how you define winning for yourself. And it's easy to say it and say, of course, I'm in the game, I'm winning. It's much harder to actually believe that. And so it's easy to make the Instagram clip, but it's hard to live it. And what's been interesting for me is that I feel like it's unlocked a different level of work ethic. I thought that the fear of the gun to your head was still the strongest motivator, and it is in the short term. But if you need to run a marathon, then you need to have something that is going to sustain for a longer period of time. Like punishment is always stronger in the short term, reward is always longer in the long term. And so we have to redefine how we reward ourselves for the work we do. And so since I don't believe in legacy and I don't believe that in 5,000 years people are going to remember who I am, I had to make winning working as hard as I could on something. How do you measure working as hard as you can? Tough. I think about a future version of myself who has all the context of my current situation, my skills, the information available to me, the resources I have. And that man, that future man, knows what perfect work looks like, which is how much effort can I put into this thing and not be distracted and continue to chisel away at this project. It's very hard because it means there's very few projects that I can do if I have that level of work as my new standard. And so if that level of work is the standard and that is what winning is, then I can only do it for a few things. There's just a lot of things I'm not going to be able to do, which is sad in some ways, but I think a necessary trade-off because like we have one human life.
The point of why I hate the concept of no one can outwork me is that there are many ways to win the game. If you were to think about an amazing goal as a dragon to be slain, if you are familiar with video games in any way, when you create like a war party, you have a group of people that are gonna go on a quest. You don't just have 10 paladins or guys who just have shields and swords. So you've got a healer, a mage that's really good at damage but can't take a lot of damage. Then you've got a paladin who can't hit as hard, but he can take a lot of shots. You find people who have complementary skills. If you're playing football, you don't have 10 running backs. The entrepreneur really should be the coach of the team. It's about organizing the pieces and how well they play together that ultimately determines how good the team is. Like how many times have you seen the team with the all-star that has the poor supporting cast get beat by the overall better team? It happens all the time. A lot of entrepreneurs, as I see them, are trying to play the game like they're the star player and they want to score all the points, but they lose to Apple because Apple's got a team. We celebrate a specific action like work when it's really just saying, oh look, there's a paladin who can take a lot of hits. Cool. That's not the only thing that's required to win. I think what is more valuable is to know what are each of the roles that exist within the business, A. B, is there one of these that you map to based on your characteristics and skill sets? And then C, what is my eventual evolution through entrepreneurship? What would players do if they had no coach or leader? And then what would they do if they had the best coach and best leader? The delta between those two is the value of the coach, the value of the CEO. The CEO needs to have the highest return on time out of anyone in the organization because they need to always be solving the next problem. As long as when they replace their time, the activities they do with the new stuff builds the business even more, then that trade will always work.
The fastest way to build a $10 million business is often not the fastest way to build a $100 million business. If you wanted to build a building that was 10 stories tall, you would start with a very different foundation. Now imagine you built a 10-story building and then said, okay, I want to build a 100-story building using the same foundation. You wouldn't be able to. But that's exactly what most entrepreneurs do when they're trying to scale and they wonder why they're stuck. It's because they built it wrong to begin with, because they were in the wrong opportunity vehicle. One of the big things that took me too long to learn is it's the size of the slice of the pie that matters, not the shape of the slice of the pie. They obsess about the shape of the slice rather than having a slice that's like this of a much bigger pie. The average IPO founder, when a company IPOs, owns 12.5% of the company they founded. Because the more people you make money, the more money you ultimately make. 20-year-olds stay poor because they start trying to earn rather than trying to learn. They did a survey of high school seniors. 52% believe that they will be a millionaire by 25. It's delusion. You can try and roll the dice and have a 1 in 1,000 shot of being a millionaire in 90 days. Or I can guarantee that you'll be a millionaire in a decade. Which would you prefer? And so I want to give you a quick example of two guys about the same age that took two very different directions in life. One of them went to another guy who was a little bit older, tried to learn the basics of editing video, used the buddy to get a job interview, and he'd learned enough that he could get a job offer. This particular company had a huge suite of other people who were significantly more advanced. Creative director who's done multiple big brands that he had the ability to learn from. He gets a $60,000 offer, which is a solid amount of money for editing with basically no experience, who then, rather than accept the job, he asked for $3,000 more. Because what he thought he had to do was earn rather than learn. The business is obviously not going to do that. What this guy does is he starts trying to negotiate back and forth, wheels and deals, and then eventually gets a job to be the lead head honcho of video editing at some small business that has no other mentors, there's no other people ahead of him. He took the right hook in his career 12 weeks after getting into it. And now they're the ones who are trying to extract as much from him rather than coming into a business where he's the small man on the totem pole and he can learn from everyone else, which would maximize for his long-term net worth. When you're early on, you learn this much and you think you know everything. And it's something called the Dunning-Kruger effect. The more you learn in a specific skill, the more you realize you don't know. Other guy, same idea, wanted to make money, but had zero skills because he's 17 years old. Of course he would have no skills. He decided, because he talked to a mentor who was older than him and said, hey, I think you'd have a proclivity for sales. I think you'd be good at it. He said, whatever the minimum quota is that they tell you to do an activity, double it. This was a sales role, and so he was required to do 100 calls a day. He did 200 calls a day. Why? Because he's not as skilled. So he has to do twice the work in order to get the same output as somebody who's more experienced. The mentor also said, go and spend as much time as you possibly can with the number one guy. Listen to everything he does and watch what he does. So that's what he did. And then he proved himself as number one on that bottom team. Then he got promoted. The youngest guy there worked his way up. What he realized was that no one was going to give him respect based on his age. He stacked his way up, then became one of the top closers in the company, where many people were experts at sales. And he was able to learn from them because he was hungry and he did extra hours. Now, at this point in his career, he could, right now, probably start $1 million a year business, or he could reinvest. And so he got another opportunity to work at a much more prestigious company where he'll get even bigger and better experience. And guess what? He's gonna get paid less than he was making in his current job. Why would he do it? Because he's smart, not thinking short. If you go for the earning early, you stop the learning. And the moment you stop the learning is when you decide and you tell the universe that I have made enough. This is enough for me. Start at the bottom and learn every skill along the way.
The other great reason for working harder is that the harder you work, the more you realize what you used to think was hard work isn't even close to what you're capable of. Because if you want to know what the most dangerous money-making combo in the world, it's work ethic and time. Because once you realize just how much more work it takes to get from good to great, you realize you can only be great at a few things and you're forced to ignore the rest. It just takes work, shitloads and shitloads of work. And every time I dress it up or cut a corner, I get brutally reminded by life that the work just needs doing. So yes, this is your friendly reminder that it's okay to work on weekends. I think one of my favorite parables about work is that there was an art class. They split the class into two groups. And one group, they said, make the absolute best pot and turn in one pot. And the other group, they said, make as many pots as you possibly can. At the end of the semester, the team that had to make as many pots as humanly possible not only made more pots, but also ended up making better pots than the one that spent all of their time trying to make one. The work just needs doing, and no one's gonna do it for you.
Strategy is easy, execution is hard. It's the execution risk that is the much bigger risk for most businesses. If you deliver dry cleaning that is always clean, always, and always on time, you'll have an exceptional business. The strategy isn't complicated. It's the execution is where everyone fails. But this is the thing, is that the strategy is the new and exciting thing. People allocate tons of attention, tons of time to new strategies, new ideas, rather than making the obvious truth of, if I deliver everyone their clothes on time and they are always perfectly clean, this business will work. You don't need to have any fancy play to be successful. You just have to be willing to get the consistent yardage. People want clean clothes. People want them fast. People want good service. And if you execute on that for 10 years and you fill every hole in the bucket, your business grows by default because your competitors won't do that. This is where I say, like, business is not hard in that it is not complicated. It is hard because people cannot stay focused on the same thing for a long period of time. It's also because once people make a certain amount of money, if they only did it for the income, they're trying to find the next thing that's gonna make them more income rather than the mission of the business.
We're so trained to say no to any kind of upsells that if you get someone to say no, but in so doing, get them to say yes, you actually click into their subconscious automated response. Most times when they say no to salesmen, they save money. You flip the script and you align it so that them saying no actually gets them to say yes for you and to the purchase. On the upsell that they had, they gave them a little piece of bait, and it was what I call sawdust. And so sawdust is anything in a business that is created in excess that you normally throw out. So a lot of famous things were actually made out of sawdust. IKEA pieces of furniture, they just glued together all the sawdust from lumber mills. Whey protein used to get scraped off the bottom of dairy centers because it was waste product, and now it's one of the most expensive products sold from dairy. What he did was he took the scraps from all the coats that they would make in the back. They made tiny little things that were made of fur. So think like little purses, little earmuffs. And so they said anybody who would turn in their coat would get this as a bonus. They gave away something that cost them nothing, that people still perceive value, as bait to get people to come in and actually take the upsell. What's even more, when people did come to turn the thing in, they would actually say, well, you want to store that too, right? And they would say yes, and then they would charge them for that.
Even though they got the product for free, the storage didn't come free. One of my favorite quotes from B.F. Skinner, who was a behavior psychologist from way back in the day, was, "You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink." He said, well, if you bleed it out enough and you starve it and you leave it in the sun and you put the water right in front of its mouth, he's like, I can veritably guarantee that I can make it drink. And so if you were to think about yourself as that horse, then it's like, okay, well, what is the equivalent of the bloodletting, the dehydration, the starving that you can put yourself into to get the behavior you want? So starving has a negative connotation, but we can also starve out the negative things in your life. Like you can starve the alcohol, you can starve the friends. And I think the easiest way to do that is to get out of the environment you're in. I think this was in Atomic Habits. In Vietnam, I think it was like 10% of troops or something were taking heroin when they were over there in the 70s. And they thought there was going to be this massive problem when they came back to the States. But when they came back to the States, almost no one continued the heroin habit. And so going from Vietnam where you're doing heroin to the US where you're not taking heroin had a 90% success rate, whereas the inverse is true of recovery centers in the United States today. People go there and 90% of them relapse when they go back home. And so the difference is that people were doing heroin in a different environment, and then they changed their environment, and then they never went back to the environment that they did heroin in. I'll tell you the quick story of Warren Buffett and Ben Graham. Ben Graham was the GOAT back in the day for investing. Warren Buffett was just a kid out of Columbia and wanted to go learn investing. And he offered to work for Graham for free. Graham said, you're getting the better end of the deal. The actual answer was, you're overpriced. So free was too expensive for Graham because Graham knew that he was gonna have to invest more in getting Warren good enough to actually work for him. And so right now, these customers, and they are very much customers because they are exchanging something for your service. They're exchanging their time and their effort and some stuff later that you're gonna have them do. The reason that someone tells you they don't wanna work with you, even for free, is because there are hidden costs associated with whatever thing you sell. If you figure out what all those hidden costs are, you can eliminate those hidden costs and then be able to charge significantly more for your solution later compared to the other people who charge for it and still include those hidden costs. There are three paths that every entrepreneur eventually has to take. You have the path of the pure artist, the path of the pure entrepreneur, and then a hybrid path. So the path of the artist is the person who loves doing the thing. Now your art form might be plumbing, your art form might be carpentry, coding software, making media, making wallets. You have something that you enjoy doing and you do it well. The second path on the extreme is that you love business. Business is your art form, and it doesn't really matter what business you're in. I love working with different portfolio companies, whether it's solar sales, mortgage sales, physical products, software, service businesses, brick and mortar chains. Like we have all of those in our portfolio, and I love growing them all. And that's because the art for me is the actual business itself. The third path is a hybrid path, and each of these paths can go all the way to the max limit here. So an example is Tobias Lütke, who is the founder of Shopify. And so he loves building Shopify pages, and he loves the coding and he loves the product. And so what he did was he found somebody else and have them build the business around him while he stayed focused on the main thing that he loved the most. The key here is that there is no right path. It's more about the path that works best for you during the season you're in. Because guess what? You can also change paths later. Steve Jobs said, people think focus means saying yes to the thing you've got to focus on, but that's not what it means at all. It means saying no to 100 other good ideas that are out there. You have to pick carefully. I'm actually as proud of the things we haven't done as the things I have done, because most people don't achieve the success they want because they either don't do the thing that matters most enough times, they don't do it for long enough, or they're doing the wrong thing altogether. You have to let other people's dream of you die so that your dream can live, because there's only so much of you to go around. Everybody else is trying to get you to be the version of you that best serves them, including your family. I don't think it's a malicious intention, but they have goals for you that are probably not your goals for you. And somebody's goals have to die. And where most of them die is right in the middle, which is you try and do theirs and you try and do yours and you actually accomplish neither. So you might as well do 100% yours, do none of theirs, and then actually achieve the long-term goal, which they probably have, is that you live a happy and successful life. You only get there by saying no in the short term to get the long yes. The most valuable skill that you can have in order is product first, then marketing, then sales. And so right now, if you know how to sell, it's because you don't know how to market, you know how to build product. If you know how to market, then you can sell lots of stuff, but you're only gonna sell it once because the product's usually not that good. If you know how to sell product, you'll get more promotion from your customers than anything else, and that is ultimately what scales the enterprise. Marketing can scale anything to a point, and then what happens is the marginal cost of getting the next customer continues to get up and up. And if you don't get word of mouth referrals from customers who use your product, then eventually it becomes untenable and your company will plateau. And so the key to building a very, very big thing that lasts for a very long time is having an exceptional product. And you know what? If you just sell shit, you can make money. If you market shit well, you can make even more money. And what happens for most entrepreneurs is they actually go in that direction. They just learn how to sell shit because that's the easiest skill to learn. You can learn it in a couple weeks. Learn how to market takes a little longer. You learn how to write copy. It's really just translating the persuasion of sales into different types of media and selling to many people at once. And so the highest leverage thing you can do is make an exceptional product that other people want to promote for you.
I think